Leftovers have become a cornerstone of how many people eat. In an era of rising grocery prices, busy schedules, and an endless stream of viral meal prep content, cooking in batches and saving what remains makes enormous practical sense. A pot of soup stretches across 3 lunches. Sunday's roast chicken becomes Monday's grain bowl. Takeout from Tuesday reappears on Wednesday. The logic is sound, the savings are real, and the convenience is undeniable. But food safety experts consistently identify home leftover handling as one of the most underestimated sources of foodborne illness. And the mistakes driving that risk are remarkably common, remarkably easy to make, and remarkably easy to fix once you understand what is actually happening at the microbial level. To break down exactly where leftover storage goes wrong, we turn to 3 experts in the field. Dr. Vanessa Kaufman, Program Director of the Alliance to Stop Foodborne Illness; Melissa Vaccaro, Senior Food Safety Program Specialist at the National Environmental Health Association; and Dr. Jill Roberts, Professor in the Department of Global, Environmental, and Genomic Health Sciences at the University of South Florida. Together, they identify 7 specific mistakes that create unnecessary risk in everyday kitchens, along with the straightforward corrections that eliminate each one. Letting food cool on the counter. The most widespread leftover mistake is also among the most dangerous. Leaving food to cool at room temperature for extended periods keeps it in what food safety professionals call the danger zone, the temperature range between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, where bacteria including Salmonella, Clostridium perfringens, and Staphylococcus aureus can multiply at rapid rates. Dr. Kaufman identifies this as one of the most common errors she encounters. The corrective guideline is specific and worth memorizing. Leftovers should be refrigerated within 2 hours of preparation. For large quantities of hot food, the goal is to cool from 135 degrees Fahrenheit to 70 degrees Fahrenheit within the first 2 hours at room temperature, then transfer to the refrigerator to complete cooling from 70 degrees Fahrenheit to 41 degrees Fahrenheit within the following 4 hours. Spreading food into shallow containers rather than storing it in deep pots accelerates this cooling process significantly. Trusting your nose as a safety indicator. Almost everyone has done it, opened a container, taken a sniff, decided it smells fine, and eaten the contents. The problem is that smell is genuinely useless as a food safety indicator. Dr. Roberts is direct on this point. Most pathogenic microorganisms do not change the taste, smell, or texture of the foods they contaminate. Leftovers can look perfectly normal, smell completely neutral, and taste exactly as they did when first cooked, while containing pathogen levels more than sufficient to cause illness. The principle to replace nose testing is simple. Trust the clock, not your senses. If you cannot remember when leftovers were made or how long they have been in the refrigerator, the safer decision is to discard them. The momentary disappointment of throwing away food is considerably preferable to the outcome of food poisoning. Mishandling starchy foods. Rice and pasta occupy a special category of leftover risk that many people are entirely unaware of. Unlike proteins and vegetables, starchy foods can harbor bacterial spores that survive the cooking process entirely. Vaccaro explains that cooked rice and pasta are particularly susceptible to Bacillus cereus, a pathogen that thrives when these foods are left out too long or cooled improperly. Rice cookers left on the warm setting for extended periods after cooking create exactly the conditions this bacterium needs to proliferate. The corrective approach requires treating rice and pasta with more urgency than most people currently apply. Cool them quickly in shallow containers, refrigerate within 2 hours of cooking, and discard uneaten cooked rice after 24 hours, rather than extending it across multiple days as many people routinely do. Reheating leftovers multiple times. The habit of taking a large container out of the refrigerator, reheating the whole thing, eating a portion, and returning the remainder to the fridge for another round later creates a compounding risk that many people don't consider. Every cycle of heating and cooling moves food through the temperature danger zone again, creating additional windows for bacterial growth. More significantly, Vaccaro points out that reheating can kill live bacteria, but does not eliminate heat-stable toxins that bacteria may have already produced during earlier periods of temperature abuse. Once those toxins are present, no amount of reheating makes the food safe. The solution is to reheat only the portion you intend to eat and keep the rest cold until needed. When reheating is necessary, reaching an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit is the standard safety benchmark, stretching leftovers past their safe window. Even properly refrigerated leftovers have a limited lifespan, and most people push that limit further than food safety guidelines recommend. Dr. Kaufman notes that the safer window is typically 1 to 3 days, though 3 to 4 days is the range most commonly cited for general leftovers. The concern beyond that window is Listeria monocytogenes, a pathogen that, unlike most others, can continue growing at refrigerator temperatures, meaning time in the fridge does not make leftovers indefinitely safe. The practical habit that addresses this is labeling. Marking containers with the date food was made removes the guesswork that leads to the nose test problem described above, and makes it easy to identify what needs to be eaten or frozen soon. Anything that won't be consumed within the safe window should be frozen promptly or discarded, rather than kept in the refrigerator and consumed with fingers crossed. Overcrowding the refrigerator. A refrigerator packed tightly with containers, especially immediately after a large batch cooking session, may not be able to circulate cold air effectively throughout its interior. Dr. Roberts identifies temperature abuse as one of the 3 leading causes of foodborne illness, and an overcrowded refrigerator creates exactly that risk. Even when the appliance thermostat reads the correct temperature, uneven cold air distribution can leave pockets where temperatures drift high enough to allow bacterial growth. Addressing this means leaving space between containers so air can move freely, keeping the refrigerator temperature at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or below consistently, and storing leftovers on shelves above raw meat to prevent cross-contamination from any drips or leaks. Cooling food in the wrong containers. The final mistake is closely related to the cooling speed issue introduced earlier. Transferring hot food directly into large, deep, covered containers before refrigerating it traps heat in the center, keeping the food in the temperature danger zone far longer than necessary. Covering the container tightly while still hot makes this worse by preventing any heat escape. Vaccaro identifies switching to shallow containers as one of the easiest food safety upgrades available to home cooks. Spreading food into a wider, shallower vessel dramatically increases the surface area through which heat can escape, accelerating the cooling process substantially. Food should be loosely covered or vented while cooling at room temperature, and sealed only once it has fully chilled. Understanding what these mistakes have in common. Looking across all 7 errors, a clear pattern emerges. None of them reflect carelessness or indifference to safety. They reflect a gap between what food safety professionals understand about microbial behavior and what most people were ever taught. The nose test feels intuitive because we learned from childhood to rely on our senses to assess food. Letting food cool on the counter before refrigerating feels considerate of the appliance. Finishing leftovers on the 5th or 6th day feels responsible about reducing waste. Each of these habits has a logic to it that exists entirely independently of the microbial reality. Closing those gaps doesn't require a background in food science. It requires knowing that bacteria operate on timelines and temperatures rather than visible cues. That shallow containers and 2-hour refrigeration windows matter more than the refrigerator smelling fine, and that the freezer is a far better solution to the food waste problem than stretching the refrigerator shelf life past its safe limit. Food safety in the context of leftovers is almost entirely a matter of storage habits. And storage habits are among the most straightforwardly changeable behaviors